Coming up on Tech News today, Spotify's new direction is kind of an old one. We talk about how much we like it or not. FCC gives a metaphorical flip-off to AT&T, and CarrierIQ knows a lot more about you than maybe you really want them to. We'll talk about all that and more, including some Microsoft news with Mary Jo Foley next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, November 30th, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by Ring Central, the leader in cutting-edge office phone systems. Get rid of that old PBX system and try Ring Central risk-free for 30 days. Call 800-800-4070 or visit ringcentral.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And very happy to be joined today by editor of ZDNet, all about Microsoft blog, Mary Jo Foley.
Hello, Mary Jo.
Welcome, Mary Jo. You'll also find Mary Jo right here on the TWiT network on Thursdays on Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Leo Laporte.
Yes, thank you for having me on today.
It's great to have you on. Now, scheduling being what it was, we wish we would have had you on yesterday because we had so many great Microsoft stories and Windows-related stories. But we're going to save some time at the end of our discussion block to get your perspective on some of those. And there's some new stuff to talk about today as well. We'll start off, though, with the big press event in New York City. Spotify CEO Daniel Ek made an announcement this morning that Spotify is starting a platform. So kind of half what we expected in that there is an API. Developers can make apps, but the apps will only run in Spotify. It's not people can make apps for mobile platforms and access the Spotify service.
It's sort of reminiscent of how Facebook works with a lot of apps, where they synchronize very well as long as you're within Facebook. You can open up a lot of stuff.
And you have to actually download the Spotify application, and then you have sub-applications in this application. So it's kind of...
Well, that's like Facebook. Well, I guess
Facebook, you don't
sort
have
of
to.
Like Facebook.
There's no web interface for Spotify. Which
you have to download
strange.
a browser.
Yes, you do. That's true if you want to put it that way.
But yeah, some of the apps that they showed off today, Rolling Stone has an app where they have celebrity playlists and things like that. Last.fm has an app so you can integrate and scrabble and do all that stuff. I'm a big Last.fm fan, always have been. So I like that part of it.
Yeah, there's also Pitchfork, which is a really great, I mean, music fans will know Pitchfork. They review a lot of stuff. And
yeah, if you've ever hung out in Brooklyn with hipsters, you know Pitchfork.
Then you know Pitchfork. That's me. And Songkick, which helps you know, based on the playlists and artists that you listened to recently, who's coming into town. So a lot of these apps are great, and I've actually, Spotify will let you preview the beta version. I think we all downloaded it before the show, and I went ahead and in the left-hand rail, there's the apps finder, and you can go ahead and add apps, and it actually makes Spotify a lot more interesting, because something that Spotify didn't really have before was a way to discover new music. It was a really good way to search for music that you wanted to listen to and add it to your collection. But as far as recommendations and similar to what you like, that sort of thing, the inclusion of these other apps really help widen the fun of Spotify, I think.
I got to play with the TuneWiki app, and it basically scrolls the lyrics to songs as you're listening to them. So it's like, oh, I always wondered what I was not singing along to properly. But I mean, I like the way this brings in the discovery aspect of this, because like you were saying, Sarah, this thing has always been like, okay, what song am I thinking of? It's not a seed song like Pandora, so you have to keep...
You sort of go there and go, I don't know what I want to listen to.
And instead of going through Facebook, because I didn't really want my stuff posted on Facebook and see what my friends are doing, I could just simply go to Last.fm. It's give me a recommendation. So it's a much... It's kind of nice that everything's unified, though. So if you like the Last.fm or you want to get recommendations from Billboard, like Billboard Top Charts are here, you don't have to go scrambling for those other playlists. You know, you can get playlists, but you have to really look for them.
Well, and if you're the sort of person who has limited time throughout the day, and you really like Last.fm, but you don't feel like logging into Last.fm in a browser window, you don't really ever have to go, and Last.fm still gets all your information. It's just integrated into the Spotify app that you assumedly would have already launched. It is desktop only, though, which annoys me because I really thought that if you're going to launch a new app program saying Spotify's going in a new direction, it is just a little weird to me that Spotify wouldn't also launch this for the iPad.
They say that mobile may come later, but they're just starting out on the desktop.
But they're being vague about it. I mean, it's obviously not coming soon. I just think that this would have been really cool if it was integrated with an iPad app.
Well, that's
the answer to
all the apps are HTML5, so to move it over to the mobile platform shouldn't be so difficult. Because looking at the application right now, looking at these mini apps that are in there, they're really very large. There's large fonts and large album art. It would be pretty easy to see this on an iPad. Very easy on an iPad. For an iPhone, it might be a little bit smaller. It might be a little bit more difficult, but I think it would scale easily.
Now, I'm old-fashioned. I prefer 78s, and my idea of sharing music is opening the window and turning the volume up. Mary Jo, do you use any of these subscription services, or?
I know. I feel like such a Microsoft fangirl right now because I'm like, I don't use any of these because I use Zune.
You use the Zune Marketplace. Do you use the Zune subscription service as well?
Yep.
Yeah.
I am a Zune Pass subscriber. I even have a Zune player.
Do you? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't have any of these because I cover Microsoft. I have them because I actually find them really useful, and I find them the easier way to find new music, try new music. It's all in one place. I don't have to go to different apps. It's all there for me.
Do you see anything in the Spotify platform that you wish would come to Zune, or maybe tempts you to want to try Spotify out?
No, but well, I shouldn't say absolutely no, but I'd like to see Microsoft do more with streaming music because that's one thing they haven't done. But they have smart playlists, the smart DJ feature and all. So I feel like most of what everyone's kind of piecing apps together to do, I can do already with the combination of the Zune Marketplace and Zune Pass.
I'm thinking add a Zune app.
You can't read the latest Pitchfork reviews on your Zune.
I cannot, but I do not care.
Because you don't ride the L train. That's why.
I do not.
All right, let's move on.
I'm a 6 train rider. What can I tell you?
There you go. See?
Highfalutin 6.
It's all
Green line.
It all comes clear in what train you ride. I think this is a decent thing for Spotify to do in summary, and I think it probably was overblown a little bit by having a big press event, but I think they probably wanted to drum up developer interest more than anything to get people to make these apps. It's certainly not a bad thing for them to do. The FCC has done something that AT&T considers a bad thing. They have released, at least with some portions redacted, their findings on the AT&T T-Mobile merger, even though AT&T has withdrawn the request. AT&T is a little upset about this. Jim Ciccone, Senior Executive Vice President of External Legislative Affairs for AT&T, is puzzled why the FCC would release this. He says it has no force or effect under the law, raises questions as to why the FCC would choose to release it. The draft report has also not been made available to AT&T prior to today, so we had no opportunity to address or rebut its claims. The FCC said they did not want to be seen as suppressing information. So this is essentially a little bit of an FU going on between the two companies, or the two organizations, because AT&T withdrew the request at the last minute because they didn't want any of this stuff to become public, which it would have had it gone on to the to a judge to look over. And the FCC says, well, fine, if you're going to pull that, we're going to make it public anyway because there's no reason we can't.
Something like 190 pages, a bunch of it redacted, and so the FCC is putting this out there. It seems like it's just a jerk move. It's not like it's not even necessary, other than the fact I'm sure both organizations are allowed to do this. I mean, AT&T played by the rules. They were able to withdraw their application. That's supposed to go through, and the FCC said that was fine.
I think what the FCC wanted here is to keep AT&T from looking like they were able to hide stuff. And that's exactly what they said. We didn't want to be seen as suppressing information. So, in a sense, they're blaming AT&T, saying you forced our hand by withdrawing the request.
Then AT&T is saying we don't have the opportunity to respond. It's like you would have if you let this go through to the FCC and you went ahead when your merge application went through. You would have the opportunity. But now it just seems like AT&T is going to have to go out of their way to do like a PR stunt. Be like, look, this would be good for competition again. They have to figure out lots of different talking points because this stuff is out there and people are going to notice this. And FCC's findings were pretty much, this will kill competition. You're not going to have any jobs. It's not going to do anything good. Basically,
it's like, what got redacted?
Maybe like in one name.
Killed. No new jobs created. What are they suppressing?
The stuff the guy is good. If you do read through this, it's really damning, right?
Well,
and you're like, well, what did they hold back?
Yeah.
What they held back were trade secret type things, like how they would actually roll out LTE, what their plans were for spectrum allocation, things that would be damaging to AT&T if Sprint and Verizon knew them. That's the kind of stuff that got redacted. But yeah, the FCC's findings, like, we don't think this is going to do anything but reduce the amount of jobs out there. And we have concerns about anti-competitive effects in 99 of the top 100 wireless markets. So the question still remains, I mean, this is still a lot of he said, she said, but it's no different than it was yesterday when we talked about it. What is AT&T going to do now that they're still fighting this with the Department of Justice in court? That's what they're going to focus on. Wall Street Journal reporting right now that AT&T and Deutsche Telekom, who are the parent company of T-Mobile USA, have discussed doing a joint venture should an acquisition fail. This is just breaking right before we went on air. So the idea would be similar to what happens with T-Mobile and Orange in the UK with their Everything Everywhere plan. You're a customer of either one, you get access to the spectrum and the benefits of the other network. They could do some sort of joint like that. Mary Jo, do you have any insight or any predictions on what you think will happen with this ultimately?
I don't really. My kind of vested interest in here is, again, through the Microsoft lens, right?
Sure.
And the most frustrating thing for me as a Microsoft customer on Verizon is how little choice there is of platforms on Windows Phone right now. And so I was somewhat happy to hear maybe, a combination of AT&T and T-Mobile would give more competition to Verizon, maybe spur them to be a little more proactive in that space. That said, I'm not a big lover of the T-Mobile service. And so I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this whole thing happening.
It all depends on where you are. I know Ryan Block on our show said, well, I hope the merger goes through because I want to see better AT&T service because AT&T and T-Mobile both are pretty crappy where he lives. And so I think what the FCC is saying here is we wouldn't see better service in their opinion overall if these two entities combined. Maybe we would see the best of both worlds if they did do a joint venture instead of merging. But you don't feel if T-Mobile's still around, if that there would be more competition for Windows phones, or was I misunderstanding that?
I think I mostly just want to see Verizon be pushed to be more competitive. So, if that means that the two other carriers have to get together to really take on Verizon as a bigger entity, I'd be happy about that. But I have to say, right now, T-Mobile is doing some pretty good stuff with Windows Phone, and AT&T has been really proactive with Windows Phone. So, I feel like at least those two carriers are a little bit more receptive to offering customers choice. But Verizon, so far, there's only one Windows Phone model on Verizon, and so I want to see them pushed.
Another side note here: Sprint has worked out its issues with Dish rolling out a 4G LTE network. Sprint had worried about some interference on its own LTE network. So now Dish will be getting into the nationwide LTE business alongside Sprint. I don't know if Dish is going to wholesale the way Sprint plans to, but it looks like once we get into LTE, we are going to see more competition out here. So the idea of T-Mobile and competitiveness may change within a couple of years with Light Squared, with Sprint, and now with Dish all getting into the business of, at least in Sprint and Light Squared's case, giving wholesale access, which could create lots of competitors who could provide nationwide access. And that was the other thing the FCC found was AT&T had said, we're more concerned about Bleep Wireless and Metro PCS starting to go to the national stage. FCC said that's laughable. That's not going to happen. T-Mobile is the only other nationwide competitor you face outside of Sprint and Verizon, at least at this point. Story that's been percolating for a couple of weeks. We haven't really talked about it on Tech News Today. Security researcher Trevor Eckhart has been battling with CarrierIQ over what kind of information CarrierIQ collects off of phones. It's a third-party piece of software that is installed on a lot of manufacturers' phones, not just Android phones, but a lot of Nokia and RIM phones as well. CarrierIQ started by responding with a cease and desist order, which the EFF came to Eckhart's rescue right away and said, no, this is fair use. Just because he's showing a security vulnerability is not a copyright violation. You can't do that. CarrierIQ backed off and apologized. Then they said, CarrierIQ does not record keystrokes, provide tracking tools, or inspect the content of emails and SMSs. And so the reason it's in the news today and kind of blowing up is Trevor Eckhart created a video that shows exactly what they said was not happening. So keystrokes are being logged. He shows when I press a button, this is the information sent to CarrierIQ. Even more damning, it shows it over a Wi-Fi network. It's not even connected to 3G. He's got it in airplane mode. He also shows it sending a text message that he received and the text that was in the text message. CarrierIQ is a diagnostic tool. It's supposed to improve the quality of network. So what do we think is going on here? I mean, are all of the carriers and manufacturers colluding to spy on every word we say and track us?
Well, Sprint that installs CarrierIQ has already said, listen, even if any of this stuff is possible, we don't use any of this information. Absolutely. We're not collecting it. And even if we did, we wouldn't do anything with it. So almost like we have information we didn't even know we had.
We do not and cannot look at the contents of messages, photos, videos, etc. using this tool. That's what Sprint claims.
Right.
They told CNET that.
Even if they are getting the data, I mean, they probably would be doing like what Amazon's claiming they're going to do with the whole Silk browser stuff. Aggregate the data, figure out stuff, maybe not tie it to this individual phone or the individual that's associated with the account. Then they can figure out, I mean, if it's called CarrierIQ, you probably want to see how your connections and your data is being used in the course of a certain time period. But I mean, the other thing is we don't know who's installing this, as in like if the carriers are installing this or the manufacturers of the phone are installing this, right? That's not known.
Nobody's taking responsibility for that.
Yeah, so it's kind of an odd thing. I mean,
it's the carriers who get the benefit, so one would assume that it's on there because at the carrier's request.
I'm very concerned right now what exactly my wireless contract says is being transmitted to who. Because I bet they could easily have, like, they could be protected. It could be on that, in one of those really long sheets.
In this video, Akhtar shows the privacy policy for HTC, and he shows the options you have at turning off GPS and opting in to HTC, collecting information and sending it back for debugging, and you can choose yes or no. And none of it says anything about the CarrierIQ stuff. And when he says no to all of these things, says, no, I don't want my location to be tracked. No, I don't want HTC to receive any information from me. CarrierIQ still runs. And it runs two programs. One you can kill the process on. The other is a hidden process that you have to kind of look for to find, and you can't shut it down.
Yeah, he said you'd have to rewrite the source code just to get rid of CarrierIQ, which no one's going to do.
It definitely sounds like then it's not the manufacturers putting it on there. It's the carrier that they would be protected by other things that are outside of the. You have the HTC phone that says, I'll turn off all these things. But if your contract with whatever company says you're allowed, we're going to be taking your data intermittently, you might be signing away that. I don't know offhand. I want to double check these.
Well, and even if no information is being collected, nothing bad about secure websites that I'm visiting is being used by anybody. CarrierIQ already went on record saying we don't record keystrokes, we don't have tracking tools, we aren't able to pick up what you texted, Sarah texted to Tom, but you can do that. So either they have no idea how their own software works or they're lying. And each way, it makes me very nervous.
This has happened before, right? Google did this with Wi-Fi, with the Google Street View, saying, no, we're not collecting that. Then realized, oh, oops, we are collecting that. Happened to Microsoft, actually, Mary Jo. Remember when they said, no, we're not tracking any of this stuff. And then it turned out, oh, maybe a little bit of this stuff is being tracked. Don't you think that this is what happened when engineers make something and aren't thinking of any of these privacy implications? They say, well, you know what, the request the request here is a little vague, so I'm just going to collect as much as possible and send it, and they can make whatever use of it. On the other end, the carrier may not be seeing the contents of your text messages, anything. They're just seeing the data they want to see about the performance of the network, but the stuff is in there being milled around. Do you think that's possible?
I don't know if that's possible or not, but in Microsoft's case, it was about location histories, as I remember, on Windows Phone. And the issue is more like, they're collecting this data to make, your searches more accurate and all. But the question kept coming up, how long are they keeping the data? And, besides just improving the quality of your searches, what else are they doing with the data?
Right, exactly.
And that's.
And the fact that none of these companies are coming forth and even admitting that they have the data. Only Sprint has even said anything, and they've denied that they have the kind of data that it looks like gets tracked. Makes me think that, and I'm not blaming the engineer, I'm saying that somebody with kind of fuzzy requirements just said, you know what, I'm just going to send it all, and they won't use it all on the other end, but nobody will know it's there until Akhtar comes along and figures out it's there. So these companies probably don't know that this stuff was being tracked. And it's good and it's important that researchers like Akhtar are out there making sure that we all know that it's tracked, so that there isn't somebody who's nefarious
Right.
and unknown to you or the companies tracking all this information. But it's scary that it's being tracked in any case.
And at the very least, embarrassing to CarrierIQ.
Yeah, very.
Because they should know how these things work.
We'll keep an eye on it if anybody admits to anything or we learn more. But a great and interesting video. You'll find it in the show notes, twit.tv/TNT. Real quick, want to thank our sponsor, Ring Central. You've probably heard Leo talking about it on other shows. We needed to put a phone system in this big old studio because back at the cottage, we had one phone, but we only had 2 floors, so we could just kind of shuttle it around. You know, so anybody could pick it up and just yell, "Hey, Sarah, you got a phone call?" That doesn't work in a big old studio like this, so we went with Ring Central. No startup costs. No PBX box in the basement, totally affordable, easy to set up. $25 per month per user, including unlimited usage. And you get these cool phones. They're like little cell phones, wireless that sit on a charger on your desk. Get rid of that PBX system if you got one, or don't bother wasting money on it. Get Ring Central. We use them here at TWiT. You can start now with a 30-day risk-free trial, ringcentral.com, or call 800-800-4070. That's 800-800-4070. Or just go to ringcentral.com and check them out. We thank them for their support of TWiT and, of course, Tech News Today. Let's go down a new path, Sarah Lane.
Oh, Tom, I like what you did there.
Do you?
Yeah, because Path, the app, was just released last night.
New Path 2.0.
Yes, that's right. I think it's called, it's Path 2.
I think of Path as a photo app, but they've added a bunch of stuff, right?
They have. So Path started out just over a year ago, actually. It launched, and it got a lot of buzz because Dave Morin, who is a former Facebook product guy, head of product, ended up making an app that was almost the antithesis of Facebook, where you only had a select number of friends, 50 was your limit, and you shared more personal moments with people. And it was tough to catch on because, yes, at that time, it was more of an Instagram competitor where you take a photo of something and then you maybe make a comment, and Iyaz sees the photo if I've allowed him to be my friend. And the problem, it was very restrictive. So we were all used to sharing with as many people as possible and amassing followers. People didn't really get it. And Path has kind of struggled to figure out its way over the last year. Now, their 2.0 version allows you 150 friends.
Which really, if you're talking about people you actually know, you don't need more than that.
You don't. And actually, Path says, instead of friends, we prefer to call them loved ones.
That's
I can tell
much.
you for sure, I do not love 150
I don't
people.
have 150 loved
Plenty,
ones, yeah.
Plenty, if that's the way I want to think about these people. And it's not just photos anymore. It's locations. It's music that you're listening to. It's photos.
It's everything. It's waking up and going to sleep.
You can say that you're going to sleep, and it'll have this.
There's no go to the bathroom button, but I'm surprised.
Well, thank goodness for that. Although you could add that as just a standalone comment if you wanted to, Tom.
I think I'll do that.
Path they've added a lot of functionality that makes it a lot more compelling, at least to me, and it's well designed, and it's getting a lot of accolades.
I played with Path before, and the last time I used it was last year when it came out.
Right after it launched.
And so I wanted to try it out. I was actually just doing that right now. I was taking a picture of you doing this. And it's just seems like another social network to me. I don't really understand why everyone's so psyched about it. I mean, couldn't you just limit your friends list to 150? Why is this so
couldn't
cool?
you just limit your blog post to 140 characters? Why do we need Twitter to limit it?
Yeah, you could do that. I'm just curious if this is getting a lot of press. And I'm trying it out, and I'm playing with it right now. Mm-hmm. I hear all the functions you could do, but it seems like it's duplicating a lot of things that are already out there.
It is.
What's the hook with Path that I'm not seeing?
Number one is that it looks different than a lot of other mobile apps out there. It's built well. It's really fast. You upload a photo, it's there in a second.
It is pretty snappy.
It can geolocate you without you actually having to go through let's look at the Foursquare database.
Mm-hmm.
And but it also, it's a... The whole idea that you only have 150 people to share things with is, you could limit your own Facebook account to only have 150 friends, and it would work somewhat the same way. But nobody really does that. And so it forces you to think a little bit differently about a social network. These are supposed to be people that you actually care about. You don't need to add a fancy filter onto a photo, for example. I don't know. I like the idea of it.
The app itself is really snappy. Everything's uploading really fast. I'm seeing stuff that's going on in TWiT right now on this. I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean,
Leo just shared a moment with me.
A moment? Was that what it was? And again, hitting these options of this. I've got to say though, the sleep awake thing. I mean, if you're posting, I would hope it should be automatically saying you're awake. But I guess you could be doing this in your sleep.
Yeah, it does some things automatically. Like if you're in a new place for the first time, it automatically says, "Oh, Tom's at Petaluma. He's never been here before." Because I've never used the app, this new one here before.
Do you think has it hooked you?
That's a reason not to have. That's a reason to have only people you know, because it's going to do some of that stuff and wake up and go to sleep. That's kind of personal. So.
I still think that it really has a challenge getting people to want to share a lot with only a small number of people, because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have been trained to share, like a really cool picture of somebody that I care about. It's like, I want to tell the whole world about that.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to blast it out everywhere.
Make it public.
I can't do that with Path. So that's what stopped me from using the service before. I mean, I think my last update before last night was back in March. So it's like, it remains to be seen if it's going to be compelling or not.
The Yahoo board gathered for a pre-meeting dinner last night, a precursor to today's day-long meeting, weighing several bids from private equity firms. It sounds like, according to various reports, that Silver Lake is leading a group that I think, Mary Jo, does it have Microsoft in it? Do we know?
We don't know it for sure, but supposedly so it is. Yeah.
19.9% stake is what this private equity consortium would get. The Silver Lake-led one reportedly offering $16.50 a share. TPG reportedly offering $1 more than that. This is what's called a PIPE investment, or a private investment in public equity, as long as they keep it below 20%, which is why a 19.9% stake is being touted. Yahoo can do it without a shareholder vote and yet still give a minority control to someone. So Silver Lake's consortium would, again, according to reports, get 3 board seats, as well as the ability to choose a CEO. It's suspected that Jeff Jordan, former CEO of OpenTable, might get that. Mark Andreessen might get the chairman's slot. Jerry Yang would be reserved a seat. So it's everything Yahoo wants. They get to sell. They get to get some new money. They don't have to do a shareholder fight. Jerry Yang gets to stay around, and they get a new CEO. What is your take on this, Mary Jo? Is this likely to happen? Shareholders probably wouldn't be too happy with it.
Yeah, I think it is likely to happen. And the part that I keep seeing misreported when people are kind of retweeting it or blogging about it is what Microsoft's role would be here, or what their role supposedly is. But Microsoft doesn't want to own Yahoo. They had a chance to do that already, and that didn't go so well.
And Ballmer seems perfectly happy not to own them these days, right?
He does. But what Microsoft wants to do is make sure that whoever ends up buying them, if someone doesn't basically dissolve the search deal that they put in place with Yahoo. And so they're trying to protect their stake in that search deal. And that's why Microsoft's involved in this, and not so much to own Yahoo, but to make sure their search deal stays intact.
Now, sources also say that Alibaba and SoftBank are still trying to persuade Yahoo into selling the portion of them that Yahoo owns, the portion of Alibaba that Yahoo owns back. And they might consider selling a part of their shares, according to some reports. Alibaba and SoftBank still teaming up with Blackstone. I don't know where that falls on this. I guess, okay, so if I'm understanding this right, Microsoft gets in on the Silver Lake deal, not because they want to be involved in any other way, but to protect that Bing partnership, to protect that search partnership. And then Alibaba would like to have full control, but if they can't, they want to get a little more of their company back from Yahoo. What does Yahoo get out of all of this?
Good question.
Yeah. Anyone?
I guess they get to stay alive.
Yeah, I think survival is the actual only thing that happens with Yahoo. I would expect them to just do what Google's doing now and just start paring down, cutting down everything they have that's not successful, start focusing on a couple of core things. Because, I mean, yesterday we were talking about this, and Mark Andreessen reportedly might be an executive, but he doesn't even know if even he could do anything with this company. If they want it to grow, you don't want this thing to be like, well, I don't want to badmouth Microsoft, to be stagnant. You don't, even if you could just right the ship and it's kind of going, steady, that's not what you want out of Yahoo. You want it to grow. And this is something like AOL managed to do this. They seemed like they were in a complete mess, and they managed to become a content company. So they were able to reinvent themselves. So Yahoo's got a second chance, maybe, with new leadership.
Silver Lake was able to take Skype, gussy it up, put in some new countertops, and sell it to Microsoft.
That's because Skype had a bunch of patent issues, and Silver Lake was able to clear up all of this stuff that made their core technology, which would have been almost unusable without Silver Lake fixing all that.
Could Silver Lake do it's a bigger renovation, but could they do a similar thing where they, as a minority controller, just slice Yahoo up, get rid of the fat, sell off a bunch of stuff, and then sell it off maybe to Microsoft or someone else after that?
That sounds like something they would do. I mean, that's what. I mean,
and you know, there's been rumors back and forth about would Microsoft just want certain parts of Yahoo? You know, would they want to buy Yahoo Mail and say merge it with Hotmail? I don't think they want the whole company, but they might want parts.
Yeah, that seems to be the growing trend these days. AT&T can't buy T-Mobile, so we'll sell it for parts. That's been speculated there. Same thing could happen if Silver Lake got control of Yahoo. So Jerry Yang might be inviting the scorpion into the nest. I mean, what Jerry Yang wants is for Yahoo to stay Yahoo and for him to stay in the board, if not in control. Inviting one of these private equity firms in, though, they may not end up doing things the way that he would want them to be done.
I didn't know scorpions lived in nests.
Yeah, they do.
Oh,
don't they?
I don't know.
Nest of scorpions?
I've never
am
heard
I making that up?
I don't know. Maybe I just hang out in the wrong places.
Yeah, well, don't put your hand in nests.
I won't.
All right.
Might be a scorpion in there.
Before we get to news views, let's finish off with some good Microsoft stuff. Mary Jo, you had some tidbits about the Microsoft Barnes & Noble patent fight. Barnes & Noble, one of the few Android users that haven't rolled over and licensed Microsoft patents. What's going on there?
Well, this just came out this afternoon. Really interesting. Who has joined the legal team defending Barnes & Noble? It's David Boies. David Boies of the anti-Microsoft DOJ fame.
Ah, that David Boies.
That David Boies.
Interesting.
And, yeah, so he's going to help Barnes & Noble supposedly with their case before the ITC against Microsoft and the Android patents.
Well, they've got someone with some experience fighting Microsoft. I'm not sure in the end how successful he was, but he was certainly not somebody Microsoft wants to see again.
No, you know, he also helped Salesforce when they were fighting Microsoft on patents, and Salesforce ended up paying Microsoft. So his track record is not perfect, but he definitely knows the weak spots on Microsoft for sure.
Also, Microsoft rolling out a public beta for the latest security essentials. We thought this was just going to be a limited beta, but everybody can get it, right?
Well, what they did was they asked for people to sign up who wanted to beta test it, and so people who did sign up have gotten the beta bits. So MSE, Microsoft Security Essentials, is a free anti-malware, antivirus client, and they've got a new version coming, we think probably next year, given that the beta is just out now. And it's you know, more performance enhancements, better UI, a new an improved engine inside of it supposedly. So this is the product that's for people who don't want to pay for security products on Windows.
And what's really cool about the new one, because I know you can kind of drill down if you search for security essentials and get to the website, you can find the beta. It's simpler, it's faster, it doesn't bug you as much.
It doesn't do some of the things people wanted. Like some people were asking for it to be able to for them to be able to schedule when it actually updated. You still can't do that with this supposedly. So it's just kind of more of an incremental release. Better cleanup of high malware infections with less user interaction, that kind of thing.
Now, before we move on, we did talk yesterday quite a bit about the idea of Microsoft possibly putting out Microsoft Office for iPad. But like I said, we wish we would have had you on yesterday. But since we got you here now, the rumor is $10 per app. It's a pretty low price, but it made sense to me. What do you think of Microsoft bringing their big app? I guess the second biggest piece of software they have next to Windows to the competition's platform.
I think they are going to have some kind of Microsoft Office product on the iPad. But I don't think it's going to be what a lot of people are anticipating. I don't think they're going to port the whole Office suite or even the actual full-fledged Office apps to the iPad and sell them for $10 because that would just cannibalize their own business.
It seems unlikely, yeah.
It does. And it would help iPad too much, too, because, right now what Microsoft's doing is kind of weighing, are we going to make more money if we keep Office a Windows-only thing, with a nod to Mac, or are we going to make more money if we make it a multi-platform thing? And given that Office sells for hundreds of dollars, I would say they're not going to just be giving away Office as it exists today. I think they might do something like what they have now with Office web apps, like kind of a lighter version that's very web-centric, that gives you very limited functionality for a few key apps. I wouldn't be surprised to see them do that.
That kind of makes sense because a lot of apps are simply that. You take something that's a website or a web app and then you package it up as an app. And that's a pretty functional word processor that Microsoft has as part of Office 365. So why not?
They could brush off all Microsoft Works and just put that on.
No, please.
Well, it was like Office, a really cheap version of it. I mean, I don't see why not if you're going to do $10 a pop.
No. It makes a lot more sense to do Office 365, which is, but I get the parallel there. It's sort of like.
It'd be like their gateway drug. That's what they want. They want
the new Microsoft Works.
I don't think that's not that crazy a suggestion, actually, because they have this other product. Microsoft has this product called Office Starter Edition that is Microsoft Works repackaged, basically, or it's the replacement for Microsoft Works, you could say. And, they preload that for free on PCs with certain vendors. So that's the kind of the gateway drug, like Isaac is saying, It's the way you kind of get people to try it out. And if you like it, then you pay extra and you get a key card and you upgrade.
All right, well, let's move on to the news feeds. The Verge is passing along that Nikkei in Japan reports Apple will bring an LTE iPhone and iPad to market next year. The report indicates an LTE iPad in the summer and an LTE iPhone in the fall, though these are Japanese dates, so they could be different elsewhere. Qualcomm's 28-nanometer chips are out in Q2 and expected to have really good battery life for LTE devices. Battery life always a major concern for Apple, so maybe that Qualcomm chip would show up in an iPad and an iPhone if they went that way.
Well, Tom, when you say Apple, I say patent wars. The Australian federal court overturned that pesky injunction that stopped sales of Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1. However, Apple's still free to appeal, and I assume they will because the appeal would continue the ban. Apple also just asked a German court to ban the Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1N in the European Union. That's the one that's the redesigned tab with the larger silver bezel aimed at avoiding Apple's wrath. So I guess that's not good enough for Apple. The hearing is set for December 22nd.
At a congressional hearing, Amazon VP for Global Public Policy, Paul Meisner, said the company strongly supports federal legislation that would allow states to collect sales tax from it and other internet retailers. Meisner also asked that any exceptions to the rule be kept to a minimum. Amazon, obviously you guys know this, has had squabbles with individual states saying that trying to reconcile a whole bunch of different state laws about sales tax would be an administrative nightmare.
HBO CEO Meg Whitman told French newspaper Le Figaro that the fate of WebOS will be announced within the next 2 weeks. Whitman also mentioned that HP could drop to the number 2 PC maker if iPods were counted as PCs, but she says that HP would aim to be number 1, no matter how you count them, in 2013. So place your bets, folks. Keep, sell, or open source WebOS. We'll find out in 2 weeks.
What else is she going to say? We want to be number 4 by 2013.
We're number 6.
Google's revising its navigation bar. You may have heard about this yesterday. Currently at the top of the Google sites, you'll see that black bar and a gray search bar underneath. The revised version will remove the black navigation bar entirely and move some of the functionality to a new drop-down menu available when you click the Google logo. Google Plus sharing functions will be to the right of the gray bar. And Google's reasoning about all these changes is just to increase screen real estate. So that's extra 28 pixels. Iyaz counted.
28 pixels, yeah. That's actually a real number. Anonymous and Team Poison announced Op Robin Hood. The operation seeks to take money from banks and donate it to charities. Money would be taken from stolen credit cards.
Great.
Yeah, so that's how that would work. Team Poison also released data it stole from several United Nations organizations. Over 100 email addresses, passwords, and usernames are now public. Talking to the BBC, a UN representative said the information is old and outdated, but Team Poison disagrees.
Surprise, surprise! Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 now available in e-book format. Bradbury had publicly stated he is not a fan of e-books, saying that when approached by Yahoo, he told them, "Prick up your ears and go to hell." Or something like that. Why the change of heart? Well, Bradbury's agent explained to renew rights with the publisher for a new edition in paper of Fahrenheit 451, he would have to allow an ebook version. So he said, all right, fine.
A new study by Benoit Felton and Herman Wagter asserts that network congestion on ISPs isn't caused by very heavy consumers, also known pejoratively as bandwidth hogs. 85.3% of the people using the most bandwidth during peak hours aren't the hogs. What that means is those data caps, theoretically meant to preserve bandwidth, don't at all.
No, but they do annoy you and possibly
clearly,
cause you to pay more
no,
money.
that means all the
That's
ISPs will change their policies right away, right? Of course. Samsung's new system on a chip aims to bring laptop-like power into tablets. The Exynos 5250 will have a Cortex A15 2 gigahertz dual-core processor that is supposed to be capable of twice the performance of a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core based on a Cortex A9. On the graphics side, it'll be able to display resolutions of up to 2,560 by 1,600. That's WQXGA for you acronym fans. Samsung will be mass producing this new chipset in Q2 of 2012.
All right. Let's check what falls out of the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Stretchable power cables. Gizmodo reports that a company is working on creating elastic wiring that can stretch up to 1.5 times its original length. It was originally developed for use in robotics and machinery where power cables needed to have some extra slack to accommodate movement. So it could be used in wearable computers so you don't feel constrained by the stiff wires. They would stretch with you.
You can see Jerry Ellsworth using this right away.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I love this. I guess it would really matter what it's plugged into. So it, can't be some magnetic thing because then you just
Needs a latch.
pulling out your cords all the time.
It's when you just can't quite reach
Yeah.
the wall outlet.
I mean,
You could just
happens all the time.
Yeah, it happens a lot. This small little convenience thing that would be like, okay, I can just kind of just
At the
pull
airport
cable.
where the outlet is right next to the bathroom down low and you got to sit there.
But it's
you
really-
wouldn't have to sit.
It's kind of silly because really it's the longer cord. Like you're still going to have the time when it
Otherwise-
doesn't
But it's a
stretch
longer
far
cord
enough.
and a shorter cord.
Exactly. Well, there you go. Mary Jo, does this excite you? Stretchable power cables?
No.
Not so much. No, I think actually what really makes me excited is the idea of it being used in robotics and possibly in electronically enhanced clothing, stuff like that. That's pretty cool. Let's check the calendar.
An Asus spokesperson has confirmed the official U.S. release date for the Transformer Prime tablet. And guess what it is? December 8th. Taiwan actually gets it tomorrow, December 1st, which I think is already today in Taiwan. So if you're in Taiwan and you already have one, let us know. And Europe has to wait till January. Specs include that Tegra 3 quad-core processor, 8 megapixel rear cam, 1080p HD video, just to name a few, the perks. Although the promise of ice cream sandwich is still in the future. So they're kind of like a lot of other people in that way. Sony's getting ready for its Vita launch in Japan in a few weeks by updating PlayStation 3 firmware. Transfer games and content between the PlayStation 3 and the Vita. For example, you can back up Vita games and save data to the PS3. You can use the PS3 to update the Vita's system software. Firmware is rolling out throughout the week. Google says the Galaxy Nexus volume bug fix will be rolled out in the coming week. So if you're somebody who's suffering from this issue, you don't have to wait much longer, hopefully. And finally, tomorrow, December 1st, is the second annual National Day of Podcasting in Canada. They did this actually last year, and it's sort of the focus on not just let's celebrate people who podcast, but maybe there were podcasters who, I don't know, had run out of time or had shelved a project or for whatever reason just kind of got out of the habit of podcasting regularly. It's sort of, let's all get back into it, throw out a podcast, not make a big deal out of it, but just, it's almost like a National Novel Writing Month. You got a good excuse to get back into the game and reconnect with your peers. So happy National Day of Podcasting tomorrow.
Cool
Love you
stuff.
Canadians.
Let's check what's incoming.
Whoa.
That's the calendar.
Dang it.
I would rather check what's incoming.
Incoming message. There we go.
Thank you. Brian from Minnesota called in to 260 TNT show and is very excited about Google Maps 6.0.
This is Brian from Minnesota, and I, for one, am excited about the Google Maps for malls. Being up near the Mall of America, I visit it, and then when I go to look at the board to find out what shops are around, it's been delayed or wrong more times than I can count. So I'm hoping that Google can get it right, and it won't be showing me shops that had closed 2 months before. Thanks for the show. Bye.
Yeah, and then another response that we got quite a bit was, I have a phone that already does this. Now, I mentioned there was an iOS app that does this. Mary Jo, Windows Phone has had this internal, inside of a building map capability, right?
Yeah, I think it's Bing that does, right? That lets you search in malls and
The Bing
things like
Maps.
that. And Yep, Bing Maps on Windows Phone. Yep.
Yeah, so it's not like Google is the first one to do this.
Well, maybe they replace the directories with giant Google Maps 6.0 in there.
Do you know if Bing Maps does the floors? Because I was kind of excited about that. The idea of, when I was at the Underground City in Montreal, trying to find your way around, you could tell where you were, but you weren't, which of the 8 floors underground you were on.
Yeah, I don't know if they do floors. That is cool.
Yeah. Email from Jason wants to know if we really need the government involved in managing privacy on a service people use to voluntarily post updates. He's talking about the FTC regulation of Facebook. How many supposedly outraged Facebook users left the service after these supposed violations? Users already have the power within Facebook. You simply click the deactivate my account link. There's even a link in there to contact Facebook and say delete it permanently. No FTC required. That people did not leave in droves just shows how false and temporary their outrage was, according to Jason. Do we agree? I mean, FTC was enforcing legislation that says you can't do deceptive practices, and they found Facebook guilty of deceptive practices.
I don't know if I agree. I mean, people...
I don't think a service being free means that people can be deceived just because you're not paying.
I think he's right. We could quit the service, but
absolutely,
should that be our only recourse? I guess. And Facebook almost has a monopoly in a sense.
No, they don't. There are other services out there, and they're not doing anything to stop those services from going out of business. You can actually log in. You can log into
Google
MySpace
Plus.
with
Right,
Facebook
fine.
Connect. That's how anti-monopoly.
Yeah, there we go. No, Google Plus is actually on the rise there. That's true. Final email.
Mike in New Hampshire says, I enjoyed your Black Friday podcast, but I think Tom left out a couple items on extended warranties that I'd like to point out. Almost all credit cards double your warranty automatically. That means most electronics will be covered for 2 years. Most retailers' extended warranties cover 3 years. That means the purchase price is really for 1 year. It makes it easy to decline. I was surprised after buying a plan from Best Buy on my iPod. Salesman said if anything went wrong, bring it in, I'd get a new one. When something did go wrong, I was told I was incorrect and it'd be sent out for repair. And then he goes on to say, I think you can also argue that extended warranty on a big screen TV is practical. The fact that it requires an expensive in-home service call could make it a reasonable purchase.
The thing about the credit card covering, not everybody uses a credit card all the time, or even a credit card that has this, but a lot of credit cards have this coverage that adds or doubles your warranty. So check that out. That's another reason you might not have to do a purchase of an extended warranty, because a lot of credit cards provide the same stuff for free just by using the credit card.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. Mary Jo Foley, thank you so much for joining us for today's show. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Let folks know about Microsoft, where they can find it, what kind of stuff might be coming up, and anything else you've got going on.
Sure. It's allaboutmicrosoft.com. And got lots of posts coming up in the next month about end-of-year kind of prediction stuff on Microsoft and some products they have to finish out the year. And then expect lots of good stuff on Windows 8 starting late this year and going into next.
Yeah, we should see a lot at CES, right?
I don't think you're going to see a lot of Windows 8 at CES.
No? I figured we might see some preview stuff. What's Ballmer going to talk about?
I'm guessing they're going to talk more Windows Phone and Xbox, and I bet Windows 8 beta is after CES.
Yeah, that way they can do their own little shindig and not be distracted.
Exactly.
That's a good point. All right, don't forget Windows Weekly on Thursdays right here on TWiT with Mary Jo Foley, Paul Thurrott, and Leo Laporte. Also, don't forget about our Reddit. Our subreddit is technewstoday.reddit.com. You can help choose what stories we cover every day and submit your favorite moments of the year, especially stuff from like January and February of earlier this year at twit.tv/beststuff. Of course, you can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, and give us a call, leave us a message, 260-TNT show. Scott Johnson joins us tomorrow. We'll see you then.